This is the Unscripted Climb, the podcast where business owners talk about stuff that doesn't make it to motivational speeches. I'm Chris Beecham, founder of Perch Merch, where we put your logo on things people might actually keep. I co-host this with Natalie Micale, founder of Oh Hello Agency. She makes brands look like they have their act together. If you want a free merch or brand audit, we do that too. No pressure. Just don't blame us if we're honest. Go to theunscriptedclimb.com. Let's get going. Hey everybody, welcome to the Unscripted Climb mini episode. So today we are talking about visual identity.
Yes. What does it all look like?
Yeah, tell me. I don't know.
I don't either. I thought you did.
But it's something visual.
Branding and visual identity is very important. And it's not just because somebody who owns an agency that does this is saying so. Like, look at the market. Like, would you buy this if it was just a brown aluminum can with nothing on it?
No.
You wouldn't, because it wouldn't tell you what you're getting.
Got it. It's the name you're looking at. Or I know that's a LaCroix is what she's holding in her hand.
Correct.
And
LaCroix.
I know that without actually reading it.
You can look at something like a LaCroix and you can feel a sense of elegance, refinement, right?
Oh.
It makes me feel like a little delighted, right?
A little sophisticated.
Sophisticated and delighted because it's 0 calories, 0 sweetener, it's fresh, it's clean, it's a nice alternative option when I don't feel like drinking water like I should. And the way that this makes me feel is all because somebody put together a very strategic visual identity. And a visual identity means it's not just a logo, which we've been saying over and over again is not just a brand. A visual identity is all of the elements that make up the visual expression. So typography, okay? Just taking the can again. Fonts, right? The shades of color. A brand can't live, a visual identity cannot live on just one color. You see there's different shades of 3 or 4 different colors. Typography isn't just what fonts do you choose, it's how do you pair them. It's the graphic elements, right? Like, look at this, the way that they use the water droplet symbolage on the eye, symbols on the eye, right?
Yeah.
So a visual identity that's really strong and on point pulls together all these different elements, the colors, the typography, the graphic elements, the textures, and it creates something that evokes a very clear feeling. And based on your brand strategy, you can decide what that feeling is.
And you have to use it more than once, though, right? Because I know.
Yes.
Okay, listen, though. I've made the mistake before, like, this is really cool, and you use it for one, campaign.
Yes.
And then you move on to the next one because you think it's worn out.
One and done, right?
Yes.
And that's what brands forget. That's what companies forget. So the reason that, you want to continue to have consistency isn't because it just looks nice. It is because we as people are getting hundreds of thousands of ads in our faces, right?
True, yeah.
In 1 week, you're seeing hundreds of thousands of ads, even if you don't even realize it's an ad, right? Because of the internet. And so when you're being bombarded with things, how do you remember that it is something you like? The visual identity, right? Because it triggers something in your mind that reminds you, ooh, I like that brand, right? That's why people knock off Louis Vuitton and create fake Louis Vuitton handbags that, have the L and the V backwards, because they're trying to trigger that same feeling that you would have from buying a Louis Vuitton. So it's really important to be consistent with your visual identity because it is what makes you memorable. It is what makes you stand out. And it is what makes you look like a professional brand.
Okay, so let's just say, because I want to think about it in aspects of all sizes of businesses.
Of correct.
So say you're kind of starting, it's just you're a sole entrepreneur and you got to create that brand. Like, what are we putting that on? Like, how are we doing that? Does that make sense?
Yeah, so you're a solopreneur and you're just starting out and you have no idea how to do it. Is that what you're saying?
Basically.
Okay, then here's what you do, okay? You go to a place like Upwork or Fiverr, okay? Because you're a solopreneur, maybe you don't have much of a budget. And before you hire a designer, the pre-work you can do is build a Pinterest board of how you visualize this brand. So what are all of the textures, the colors, the fonts, the shapes? What are you drawn towards? Get very clear on that and make sure it's consistent, right? Make sure that board really does represent an aesthetic. And another way to think of it is the aspirational lifestyle that your customer would want to live, right?
Okay.
Then go hire a freelance designer who is $25 to $35 an hour on Fiverr or Upwork, right? And work with them to create a starter visual identity. Now, what you might get that's different than working with an agency like us, right? What you might get is you may not get a logo style guide that's perfect. You may not get the expertise on how that fourth or fifth color or that second or third font is going to look on your brand. You may not get the rules that you need for ongoing brand visual identity. But what you can get is a really solid start, really solid color palette, some very baseline rules, a professional logo, and then in 6 to 8 months, when you've made a couple $100,000 that your startup has started to grow, that's when you hire an agency and you kind of tweak it and refresh it and really professionalize it.
Yeah, because it's got to look crisp. You can't just throw a bunch of things together. You can't just throw all your favorite colors onto a thing.
It's
right?
hard because there's an element of like you just got to get started and you got to have something. And so you don't want to get so caught up in perfectionism. Like I've seen these founders, they get so caught up in building the perfect brand that they never actually go make the ask for someone's credit card. Go make the ask for someone's credit card, but have in your mind what your beliefs and value system is and what you really want to communicate and express that through your own personality as a founder, right? That's why you have a personal brand too, in the stories you tell, right? And then get a visual identity that you can start off with, and then in 6 to 8 months, once the company's grown, invest in a boutique agency like Oh Hello. There's many that I can suggest, and have them refresh the brand. And then in a year or two, when you've got some customer data, that's when you spend the big bucks, the $30,000 to $40,000, to really build a brand around your customer base.
Okay, but still is part of, I'm biased here, the merch is part of the visual thing, the merch.
Absolutely.
Which is what we do at Perch
Yes.
But
yes, your merch.
that
your
is
hats.
also part of, it all kind of has to stay the
Consistent.
same. Yes.
Yes. That's why you partner with agencies like us, because we can give the visual identity, the style guide, the rules around the brand, and then you can work on creating something, a hat, a pen, a coaster, a glass, a cup, that actually enunciates and continues to express that visual identity.
Yeah. What comes to mind for some reason is like Target. Like just, you see a guy in a red polo, because I've accidentally wore a red polo to Target. Doesn't say Target. I don't have a name tag. I don't have anything.
But people think you work there.
And people ask me where something is.
Great branding.
Yes.
That's a great example.
So, perfect.
All right, we'll leave it there.
All right, thanks everybody.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Unscripted Climb. Please hit that like, follow, subscribe button on whatever platform you're listening to. And shoot over to our website at theunscriptedclimb.com to learn more about Perch Merch and Oh Hello Agency. You can also apply to be a guest, and our email addresses are on there as well. So hit us up. Thanks, everybody.